The words left his mouth before his brain could stop them. Ambassador Marcus Cole stood in the shining crystal throne room of the Valori Empire, surrounded by warriors in armor that flowed like liquid silver. At the center of it all stood Princess Cyrillith, heir to an empire older than human civilization. And he had just told her that her chest was impressive. Silence filled the chamber. He had meant her ceremonial chestplate, the ancient armor engraved with the history of her bloodline. But the organic translator implanted in his skull had chosen a different meaning. The guards raised their weapons. Princess Cyrillith rose slowly from her throne. She was nearly 7 feet tall. Her skin shimmered like twilight. Her eyes burned like twin stars on the edge of explosion. She was beautiful in the way storms were beautiful, powerful and dangerous. "Human," she said, her voice heavy like gravity itself. "Do you understand what you have spoken?" Marcus swallowed. "No, Your Highness. I believe there has been a translation mistake." "There has not." The translator, Valoramade, did not translate only words. It read intention, emotion, truth beneath thought, which meant something terrifying. It had found admiration beneath his diplomacy. It had broadcast it. "You have spoken the words of claiming," Cyrillith said. "Before my father's throne. Before the court." Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. Among the Valori, the words of claiming were sacred. They were not compliments. They were proposals. They were binding. They were forever. And such words, she continued, stepping closer, cannot be withdrawn. The guards formed a circle around him. "You may answer them in one of 2 ways," she said. "With blood. Or with binding." Marcus blinked. "I have until when?" "Dawn." He was given a room. A beautiful prison. Silk walls. A glowing garden outside. Energy barriers at the doors. He stood on the balcony, staring at the 3 moons rising over Vela. Die, or marry an alien princess he met 6 hours ago. Death would destroy negotiations between Earth and the Valori forever. Marriage would bind humanity to an empire that lived for thousands of years. A knock came. An attendant entered with food, and a small velvet box. Inside was a glowing sphere, a heartstone. "It beats in time with the princess," the attendant explained. "She has carried its twin since youth. Waiting for the one who would claim her." "How long?" Marcus asked quietly. 30 of your years." 30 years. She could have executed him immediately. Instead, she gave him a choice. Later that night, Cyrillith herself entered his chamber. Without armor, she looked less like a warrior, and more like a woman who had been waiting a very long time. "The translator read truth," she said softly. "You did not mock me. But beneath your confusion, you saw me." He had. When she entered the throne room, something inside him had shifted. Not politics. Not strategy. Recognition. "You saw me as magnificent," she whispered. He didn't deny it. "Among my people," she said, "to truly see someone is the beginning of binding. And if I choose death." Her voice became steel again. "Then you will die at dawn. And I will wait again." She left him with the heartstone. Marcus did not sleep. At dawn, Commander Sarah Chen burst into his chamber, furious and ready to start a war to save him. "You need to leave," she insisted. "I have a shuttle ready." "If I leave," he said calmly, "it's war. If you stay, you either die or marry her." He looked at the glowing heartstone. "I have a third option." When the princess returned at dawn, guards ready for execution, Marcus stood straight. "I have a condition." Her eyes narrowed. "You are in no position to demand." "Not demand. Request." He held up the heartstone. "I want to court you." The guards stiffened. Courtship among the Valori was not casual. It was a sacred vow of serious intention. "You asked to court the one you claimed?" she asked. "Yes," he said clearly. "Not because I stumbled into sacred words. But because I choose them." Silence stretched. Then, she laughed. Not cruel. Surprised. "You impossible human," she said softly. 200 years of tradition, and you rewrite it. She stepped closer. Courtship is a promise to pursue binding fully. I understand. You do not, she replied gently. But you will. She placed the heartstone back into his hands. I grant your request. You will remain as my intended. For how long? Until I am satisfied, she said, eyes shining, or until one of us surrenders. And just like that, the human ambassador did not die. He became the most dangerous thing in the Valori Empire. The princesses chosen. The courtship changed everything. For 3 months, Ambassador Marcus Cole lived inside the Valori Palace as Princess Cyrillitha's intended. He was not a prisoner. But he was not free either. Every eye in the Empire watched him. Some watched with curiosity. Many watched with anger. A human, short-lived, fragile, emotionally unstable by Valori standards, had spoken the words of claiming to their future queen. Even if it was by accident. Even if she had granted him courtship. To them, he was still an outsider. And outsiders did not sit beside the throne. Cyrillith did not make it easy for him. She did not protect him from criticism. She did not silence the nobles who questioned his worth. Instead, she pushed him harder than anyone else. If you are to stand beside me, she told him one evening in the strategy chamber, you must withstand what I withstand. And so she tested him. She brought him to council meetings where ancient generals debated war across star systems. She asked his opinion publicly, forcing him to speak in front of warriors who had commanded fleets for centuries. At first, they dismissed him. Until he began to surprise them. When 2 Valori admirals argued over whether to crush a rebel colony by force, Marcus asked one simple question. What do the rebels want? The chamber fell silent. The Valori did not usually ask that. They believed strength ended resistance. Marcus believed understanding prevented it. He proposed sending supplies instead of soldiers. Aid instead of threats. A temporary alliance instead of destruction. It was risky. Cyrillith allowed it. Months later, the rebel colony pledged loyalty without a single shot fired. The admirals stopped laughing at the human. But not everyone was convinced. High Warlord Kael'thar was different. Kael'thar was old by Valori standards, nearly 800 years. His armor was marked with battle scars from wars humanity had never heard of. He had earned his power through blood. And he did not trust Marcus. You speak of mercy, Kael'thar said one day in open court. But mercy is weakness. Marcus met his gaze without lowering his head. On Earth, Marcus replied calmly, mercy is what keeps us from becoming monsters. Murmurs filled the throne room. Kael'thar stepped forward. Then prove you are not weak. The challenge was clear. Valori tradition demanded that any being who sought to bind with royalty must prove physical worth. It was not about killing. It was about endurance. About courage. About refusing to break. Cyrillith did not stop it. She watched Marcus carefully. You may refuse, she told him privately. If I refuse, Marcus answered, they will never accept me. And they will question your judgment. Her eyes softened for just a second. You could be injured. I will be, he said with a small smile. The arena was enormous. Crystal walls rose hundreds of feet high. The 3 suns of Vela burned overhead. Thousands gathered to witness what many believed would be a short and embarrassing defeat. Marcus stepped into the arena wearing modified Valori training armor. Kael'thar entered opposite him. Twice Marcus's size. Blades extended from his forearms. The signal sounded. Kael'thar moved first. Fast. Faster than Marcus expected. The first strike shattered the ground where Marcus had stood a second before. Marcus rolled, barely avoiding the blow. The crowd roared. Kael'thar attacked again. And again. Each strike was heavy enough to break human bones. Marcus did not try to overpower him. He studied him. He remembered something from human history. Humans survived not because they were the strongest, but because they adapted. Kael'thar relied on strength, on intimidation, on speed. Marcus relied on observation. He noticed Kael'thar favored his left side after heavy swings. He noticed the slight pause before each major strike. He noticed that anger made the warlord less precise. So Marcus changed tactics. He stopped running. He baited. He stepped into range, forcing Kael'thar to commit to large attacks. Then he redirected momentum. Used the warlord's own weight against him. Minutes passed. Then 10. Then 15. The crowd grew quieter. The human was still standing. Sweat covered Marcus's face. His ribs hurt. His arm felt numb. But he did not fall. Kael'thar roared and launched his strongest charge yet. Marcus waited until the last second. He pivoted. Grabbed a projection harness on the warlord's armor. Shifted his weight. Kael'thar's own momentum flipped him forward. The massive Valori crashed into the crystal floor. The impact shook the arena. Silence. Marcus stood over him. Breathing hard. He could have struck. He could have humiliated him. Instead, he extended his hand. "I don't want to defeat you," Marcus said clearly. "I want to stand with you." For a long moment, Kael'thar stared at him. Then slowly, he took Marcus's hand. The arena exploded with sound. Not mockery. Respect. Cyrillith rose from her throne. And for the first time since courtship began, pride shone openly in her eyes. That night, she found Marcus alone on the balcony, staring at the moons. "You are injured," she said. "Just bruised. You could have ended him." "That would make me your husband," Marcus said quietly, "but not your partner." She stepped closer. "You fight differently than us. We always have." She studied him. "You did not win with strength." "No," he said. "I won because I refused to give up." Cyrillith's voice softened. "That is strength." Weeks later, the Empire changed in small ways. Nobles who once ignored Marcus now sought his opinion. Warriors nodded respectfully when he passed. Even Kael'thar began training with him, teaching him Valori combat philosophy while learning human strategy in return. But the greatest test had not yet come. The High Emperor, Cyrillith's father, was dying. His body had ruled for millennia, sustained by advanced Valori biotechnology. But even their kind could not defeat time forever. On his final night, Cyrillith stood beside his bed. Marcus stood behind her. The Emperor's ancient eyes opened. "You are the human," he whispered. "Yes, Your Majesty. You challenge my daughter." "I do." A faint smile touched the Emperor's face. "Good." He turned his gaze to Cyrillith. "You must never rule alone." "I will not," she answered. The Emperor looked back at Marcus. "Protect her heart," he said. "She will protect your world." Hours later, the Emperor passed. The Empire entered mourning. And Cyrillith became Empress. The binding ceremony could not wait. The moons aligned 3 weeks after the Emperor's passing. Tradition demanded it. Under the triple moons, before the entire Empire and live transmission to Earth, Marcus and Cyrillith stood together. This time there was no accident. No confusion. Only choice. The High Priest stepped forward. "Do you bind not by error, but by will?" Marcus spoke clearly. "I bind by will." Cyrillith followed. "I bind by choice." The twin heartstones were brought forward. When they touched, light erupted across the arena. The Empire felt it through their neural network. Truth. Commitment. No deception. No fear. The stones pulsed together. One rhythm. One future. The bond sealed. The Empress turned to her people. "You feared weakness," she declared. "You feared difference. But strength is not sameness." She took Marcus's hand. "Strength is the courage to choose." The Empire knelt. Not to Marcus, but in acceptance of him. Years passed. Marcus aged. Cyrillith did not. Lines formed on his face. Silver touched his hair. But the heartstone never stopped beating. Together, they reshaped 2 civilizations. Valori learned patience in diplomacy. Humans learned discipline in expansion. Trade flourished. Wars decreased. The galaxy watched the unlikely union. And slowly, respect replaced doubt. On a quiet evening decades later, Marcus sat on the same balcony where it all began. Cyrillith stood beside him, unchanged by time. "Do you regret it?" she asked softly. He smiled. "I regret almost dying in that arena." She laughed gently. "I mean the binding." He looked at her. "No," he said. "Because this time, I knew exactly what I was saying." She leaned her forehead against his. "You saw me." "I still do." When his final day eventually came, many peaceful years later, Cyrillith held his hand as the Heartstone slowed. "You changed my empire," she whispered. "You changed my species," he replied. His last breath left quietly. The Heartstone dimmed. But it did not die. Valori history recorded him not as a human ambassador, not as a fragile outsider, but as Marcus Cole, the human who refused to kneel. And across the Empire, for the first time in its long existence, the Valori understood something humanity had always known. Strength is not about living forever. It is about choosing who you stand beside while you are alive. And sometimes, the smallest species can change the largest empire.